This report had the largest number of downloads of any report we've issued since the election, which may tell you something about perceptions of government and IT.
Thanks, Andrew, and good evening, everybody. Particularly pleased to be followed by Ian Watmore, because 10 years or so ago, maybe a little bit longer than that now, Ian used to consult to me when I ran my IT organisation. This feels a little bit like role reversal. Complex multi-year programs taking years to draw up in advance, inflexible, changes that are costing money, something's going to give somewhere here. Government can't stay locked in a time warp forever. That said, we will probably always need, as other big organisations do, a large delivery legacy-based system. However, not so long ago, the time when I was doing that job, there was no broadband. It was in development, but there was no broadband. There was certainly no social networking. Email was primitive by today's standards, access to the net was much less. That accelerated the pace of technological change, plus the imperative from government ministers to do things faster and better, I think leads us to a situation which just isn't tenable, where we have to move on. The government has said its own things about driving efficiency, about supporting innovation. The reports that we've had about government IT, and this report looks to the future rather than dwells on what may have gone wrong in the past, is that many places, including several places in government, are actually using agile methods. Our recommendation is that all government departments should try out at least one or two. Again, that's a recognition that it won't necessarily be the right way forward in all circumstances. But we want slicker development, we want move to functionality quickly, we want short iterations, we want room for experimentation, for improvisation and reprioritisation, and critically, making the point that, as many of you will know, agile is more than about software development. Critically, we want to ensure that the users and indeed the customers, to the extent they can be represented, get fully embedded in the process. The mindsets required about an agile approach, and particularly about the embedding of users in an agile approach, that may or may not happen at the moment. We've made some recommendations about governance in the report. There's a role for suppliers to play. Plenty of room still for big suppliers. Government IT, by some definitions, the Treasury definition, is expenditure of 16 billion a year, but there's much more scope for SMEs to get involved as well.
I think my short summary for my remarks is very much support the direction of this report going forward, and I'll come back to that. But one thing I did want to say is that I don't claim this report does it, but commentators generally do. There's a general sort of trashing of government IT that goes on, which I don't share at all. The reason I don't share it is because actually large numbers of systems work every day very well up and down the country in all aspects of our project life, and you would notice if they didn't, believe me. Every day the DWP systems pay out £500 million a day. These are massively complicated and big IT systems. If you're sitting in DCLG down in Cheltenham, which of course one can't talk about too openly, but they're using technology for a completely different purpose, to intercept terrorist messages and to protect the nation. This report, I think, is very good at being future focused, and it focuses on two broad themes. One, the agile approach to building the systems and indeed therefore implementing policies and programs, and secondly it talks about creating a platform that effectively connects those new systems with the huge legacy estate that we are bound to have in the era. And I think that approach is absolutely right in both regards. The cycle of delivery and development and new ways of working, I think, are fundamental. Many of the criticisms of the past come from the fact that the scale of the project undertaken was so huge and so lengthy that by the time the project was completed, it was already out of date. And that is, the challenge that we collectively need to tackle. And therefore it is important that when one is introducing a new policy or programme, there are regular and repeatable releases, so that every 6 months or maybe a year there's new stuff coming on the stream. You make sure it works, you test it as far as you can, you get it out there, you get it working, and you build upon it. And as the world changes around you, so you adapt what you're doing, and that is clear. There is a world out there of people who can provide solutions for us if we open up our data and enable them so to do. And although there are many good examples of that, but I think the one that usually gets quoted is the NetMums environment, which takes a lot of public information and provides it in a usable and accessible way for its members, and its members then iterate and change it in line with what they want, and not what some person might thinks they want. To bring that about in the quickest, cheapest and least risk way. And I'm pleased to say that the programme plan that was put forward this morning could have been a perfect case study for this report's recommendations. And therefore I think it's a great example of not only what we're saying we're going to do, but actually doing it as well.
At what stage do you think the interaction with public service by members of the public will be similar to, or regarded as equivalent to, interaction with, say, airlines or retailers or other organisations in terms of technology?
Yeah, well, I mean, again, somewhat, the bigger the scale, you do the slightly slower pace than the very nifty, innovative small scale operators can. But I would argue that there are many examples of government transactions that are as good as anything that's out there. I mean, I know it's hacked on, but the car tax online one is brilliant. Right? Yeah. It's brilliant. And it's brilliant not just because it's easy to use, but actually when you understand what goes on behind it, actually putting together 3 bits of data about you that that are held in different places, and they're doing so in a very seamless and quick way. So I think there are a lot of good examples out there. There are equally a number of examples where we've automated a clunky old process, and we've just put on the web something that may have been once useful in the past, in a different era. And so one of the things that Martha would claim inherent one, and a whole load of other people are telling us, and we believe anyway, is that we have to change the way in which we build the service on the web. Either if we do it ourselves to do it with the user in mind, not with the old process in mind, then increasingly not build it ourselves.
Example where we use Agile to actually make a difference. So we were asked by the incoming administration, who said, doing correspondence on paper, a red box, correspondence in it seems a bit, 19th century, 21st century, I like to do it on my BlackBerry. That's not a plug for the sponsor of tonight's event. That's RIM, Research in Motion, maker of BlackBerry. But I said, well, I'm going to do it on BlackBerry. So, what do? Well, we sat down, we worked with our partner, our delivery partner, and most importantly, we worked with the users. And we went from having the vague idea, which is, would it be nice if I do my correspondence on BlackBerry, to actually having it live, running, operating in 2 weeks. Okay? Now that's the kind of delivery cycle which we normally expect to come from SMEs, entrepreneurs, .com world. Okay? It's a kind of delivery cycle which we should be expecting to deliver to our user base. Okay? Not always, because it's horses for courses, some projects don't work that way. But it's a mindset. The mindset is about involving the users, it's about involving the community, it's about challenging everyone in the process. Okay? The analogy which I often use, because I think in metaphor, until people stop me, is a lot of government projects like getting across a river. What do we do? Normally what we do is we say, I must get across this river, therefore I shall commission someone to build a bridge. The bridge will take a long time to build, it will cost a lot of money, and until it's completed, it will deliver no value whatsoever. Because 99.99% of a bridge ain't no use. But it will be a wonderful bridge. And then we go away, and time passes, and eventually, if we're lucky, we end up with a bridge. Here's another approach. Why not build a boat? Or in fact, why not encourage people to build all kinds of boats? So it's that mindset change. which is to focus on what is it we're actually trying to achieve, not the machinery, the mechanism, which we would normally reach for and say, it's a river, it's a bridge. What we're looking at is moving the approach which we take to IT in the public sector to one which I would characterise as being much more like the kind of approach we would take in the private sector, which is seeing IT, looking at IT as a source of, if you like, business opportunity. Okay? How can we drive innovation? How can we drive business opportunity? How can we drive being faster, cheaper and better? Okay? And Agile, for me, is a key mechanism for doing it. One of the things which we do in government, and say in any bureaucracy, is that because we're a bureaucracy, the only tool which we have really is process. So we seek to manage and mitigate everything through process. Okay? That's not a bad thing when it's an appropriate process. The problem is, like the old adage, if the only tool you've got is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. So if the only tool you've got is process, then the solution to every single problem is let's throw more process at it. Why aren't government IT projects delivering? We don't have enough process. How do we manage risk? Let's put more process in there. Again, it comes out to the point about our relationship with the market. If we're going to do Agile, somebody asked me this question today actually, if we're doing Agile, is Agile just about IT? Obviously not. It's also about business process. But it's also beyond that, it's about market engagement as well. Okay? Because if we're going to do Agile, we have to deal with and engage with the market in an Agile fashion as well. So the challenge for us is, how do we embed Agile into the government space? The second challenge is about business processes. How do we embed Agile into our business processes? How do we actually start off, right at the very start of the project, when we come to the river? At what point do we decide this is where we need a bridge, or this is where we should look at boats? How do we actually do that? What's the mechanism which actually embeds that in our thinking? And the last part is about agility and the community. And Ian spoke about community. For me, that's the most important thing if we're going to get Agile embedded into what we do. Okay? Because if we're going to make Agile work, it is something which has to grow out of an organic community which can support and sustain that. Okay? It's not something, it's not big at our existing SI partners, it's just part of the process, it's part of the mechanism. We need the ability to engage with the wider world, the wider community to make these things happen. That's not to say that SIs can't do Agile, not at all. The example I gave previously, that was an SI who worked in an Agile fashion. But what it is we need a variety of means and mechanisms to do that. So the Skunkworks, we're looking at how do we tackle these issues. Okay? We don't have solutions at the moment. This report is a really useful, really helpful adjunct to that. We're sharing it with colleagues within the UK, but also more widely, because we think it's a very useful discussion document and a very useful point for working on. As I said, as a CIO, I'm taking the findings of this report, I'm actually going to put them to the test and say if we actually take recommendations 5 through 8 and implement them, or seek to implement them, will it make a difference? Will it deliver business benefit and value? I'll have to report back on that. And then the Skunkworks, we're actually taking Agile and we're saying, how do we actually embed this in our cultural DNA? Right?